Adam Schefter. A deal between the Giants and Judge was in the works as of Monday night, which is another reason Matt Rule took the Panthers head coaching job. According to our Adam Schefter, apparently he did call them an offer to match. Bart Scott's still here with us. Marcus Spears now. Marcus, I don't want to hear anything about Mike McCarthy anymore. What's your reaction?
Just surprising. I mean, there are so many like outliers to what you would say, right? Like the experience, guys that are holding coordinator positions and head coaching jobs, even in the college ranks, if that's not the route you wanted to go. So there are a lot of people that we tend to think about. I'm not going to be as crazy about this though. Like, and I know because I was the same way about Mike McCarthy. Like, who the number one problem with people saying Joe Judge is who the hell is he?
Yeah.
Right. That's the number one thing. I don't know if the guys can coach or not. So I'm not going to sit here and act like the New York Giants wasted an opportunity to hire a good coach because I don't know that. At some point,
there's a little bit on his coaching history if you want
at some
context.
point, you got to get a start. Here's what I'm betting, though. I'm betting that Joe Judge was preceded by the fact that he worked for Nick Saban and he worked for Bill Belichick. These relationships, which for me, by and large, I have an issue with, which almost begs itself to go into the African-American coaches being hired, because is there enough of those relationships for those type of guys to get these type of opportunities? Yeah. But with that being said, this is about who he's been associated with more than if we know that he's a great coach. This is hearsay that the Giants hired this coach.
I want to make a point about that.
Okay.
I brought up last segment that Giants had coordinators once upon a time, Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry, right? And don't wind up with either as head coach, right? And so other legacies. They also have Bill Belichick as a defensive coordinator. Yeah. And he winds up the greatest coach of all time with the Patriots. Here's my point. If you love Joe Judge and you think he can grow because he's young and everything, but he doesn't have the executive, chops yet, then he should be the coordinator for the head coach, who I would think, if I'm the Giants, instead of thinking smaller, I look at Bill Belichick, and I think whatever they're paying you, I'll double it. If that doesn't do it, I'll triple it. You're the GM and the coach. You have total power and a blank check. Bart, is that like off the wall? Is that an off-the-wall idea?
It's not, but you have to know what Bill Belichick wishes is. Does Bill Belichick want to leave his cushy job there where he's established something, in New England?
But do you think it's crazy to even bring that up?
It's not crazy, not
Why
at all.
not?
Because we know that Bill Belichick loves the Giants organization, and we know that if it's one organization that he would leave the Patriots for, it is the Giants.
There's some video of Joe Judge, since a lot of people aren't familiar with what he looks like. I just want to add one thing. I don't think they were going to get Josh McDaniels, and I'm assuming that's why they went with Joe Judge.
They look down instead of up.
This appears to me that they're just thirsty for some of the Patriots.
But let's call it what it is. Like, all right, let's contextualize this to where we are right now. Like, if this guy don't vouch for me, some of my opportunities probably don't happen. If he doesn't, some of my opportunities, their stake in the game is the reason why I've been able to do what I've been able to do in television in some parts. Yeah. Now, there's still a vetting process, and you have to prove your mettle. Football is different in that way. You can't prove your mettle until games are played, until you have a legit sample size. But when you look at Joe Judge's history of where he's been, he is the head coach of the Giants because of association. Yeah. Now we'll figure out if he has the ability to actually lead men and be the head coach. Okay. That can be disappointing, Molly. That can be disappointing for fans and all of that. But I'm not quick to kill Joe Judge because of that, because a lot of people are in position because of that.
I have more breaking news I want to hear from Stephen A. So apparently they are now bringing in Jason Garrett to interview him to be Joe Judge's offensive coordinator.
What are we doing right now? Where are we?
So Jason Garrett, yes, they're interviewing Jason Garrett, that according to our Ed Warder, to be Joe Judge's OC.
So Jason Garrett, who's been coaching in the National Football League for 9.5 years, actually had a winning record over 20 games, over 20-plus games over 500. He's supposed to come in to work under a former wide receivers coach who's never coached, who's never even been a coordinator.
Yes,
in
I like that. I got to tell you, I like that. Let me tell you why I like that.
That's how they do it around.
Let me tell you why I like that. Jason Garrett was being thrown, his name was being bandied about for this job. You know the expression, the devil you know, better than the devil you don't? In this case, it's the opposite. The devil I don't know is better than the devil I do. Okay. Like, I already know what Jason Garrett is as a head coach, don't want any part of it for the Giants. But this Joe Judge, there's a possibility at least that he could be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I speak?
He in a dark place.
May I speak?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in any of those points. None of y'all are wrong. Not one of y'all. Y'all are not wrong. I want y'all to take into consideration what I'm looking at. I applaud the job that Matt LaFleur has done in Green Bay. But he was the offensive coordinator of the 27th ranked offense in the National Football League when he got the job. There is a guy in Arizona by the name of Cliff Kingsbury. He was under 500 in college football and got a head coaching job. Today, we are talking about a wide receivers coach who has never even been a coordinator in the National Football League. And he's now going to be the head coach in the media capital of the world for a New York Giants franchise. And there are 3 African-American head coaches in the National Football League.
Yo, Jim Caldwell is not hired.
Wait a minute.
Chris Richard?
Stay with me. Hold on, guys.
Sorry, yep.
There is Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. The man's won 65% of his games and has never had a losing season. There is Anthony Lynn, who struggled this year because Phillip Rivers ain't what he once was. But he was in the divisional playoff round last year. He's the reason Lamar Jackson went home early, okay? And Brian Flores is in Miami coaching a team that none of us thought would win a damn game. We were actually having a debate as to whether or not this would be the worst team in the history of the National Football League. And the man won 5 games, including 2 playoff teams he beat this year. He actually beat more playoff teams this year than the Buffalo Bills did.
And was a coordinator.
Okay? And was coordinator, okay? But for some reason, there is a Rooney Rule in place, and still this kind of stuff is happening. I want to announce on national television that I personally am going to take it upon myself, whether it's to communicate with the NFL league office, whether it's to communicate with owners, whether it's to sit up here and raise holy hell, whether it's to recruit my contemporaries in this business to address it. We got a problem. This is some BS. Ain't no way around this. We moving in a reverse direction. We moving in a reverse direction. Black men are not being treated fairly in the National Football League. Somebody got to say it. Somebody got to say it. You got to be kidding me. When the stuff that has happened over the last year, for this stuff to go on and we just gonna sit up there and have a sports conversation. No, I ain't having no damn sports conversation at this particular moment. Something wrong. Now, the National Football League or somebody else, we got to change this Rooney Rule. It's bogus, clearly, because it's being bypassed. The original intent, what it was intended to produce, is being circumvented. And black men in the National Football League are being ostracized from key positions in the National Football League. Somebody needs to say it. The NFL, league owners, the world of sports, sports talk television, sports radio, y'all are going to be hearing from me. Something got to be done. Something got to be done.
Just to be very clear, you're not saying anything against Joe Judge or
Not
any,
at all.
or any, or
Not
any
at
guy.
all.
Because the
Nothing
point
to
is
do with
this.
it.
I totally agree with that point. The point is this. Some guys may surprise you. Oh, look, that turned out he was a great hire.
Yeah.
But the point is the African-American candidate will never have a chance to surprise you because he'll never be plucked from the ranks of,
Not from a wide receiver coach to head
and
coach.
given the chance. In 1976, Sugar Ray Leonard was turning pro with a gold medal, Olympic gold medal. And Muhammad Ali came to him and said, hire Angelo Dundee, the great Hall of Fame trainer. Said he has the complexion and the connections. That was 1976. Yeah. It's 2020. And still the complexion gets you the connection.
See, and here's this is so great that it led to this because what disappoints everybody, you know, like I'm one of those people where I would sit back and be like, yo, this is what it is. Like we all know this what it is. We all know this is the system. This the way things work.
Not right.
It's not supposed to be that in sports. Sports has been the traditional trendsetter in changing the temperature. It's been that in every way. Like when you think about it from the beginning, and people will say, well, how does a head coaching conversation go to this point? Eric Bieniemy is still not hired,
Richard.
who is revered. Chris Richard. You just had
Caldwell.
Leftwich be a coordinator in Tampa. Read it however you
From a
want to
league
read
that's
it.
75% African American.
But the fact that this hire is made based upon connections is the issue I have. That's why I brought it up.
Not
I
qualification.
brought it up that way, not qualification. So now we got to go with the presumption that Joe Judge does a good job, as opposed to what Stephen A is saying, candidates that we've seen that are black do a good job. Why does that jump happen based upon what we've seen?
And you know what else you're saying? Because you're asking a question, and it's almost rhetorical because we know the answer. You know, we could sit up there and talk about Max. That's a great line in terms of the complexion that you brought up. But it also comes down to this. You're not trusting black men to lead black men because the National Football League is primarily black. So what you trying to say? What are you trying to say? And, again, it's not like there's 32 jobs, so black folks make up, 13, 14% of the population. So that means, 10 coaches need to be black. It's not about that. But when you only have 3, and people who are being promoted are dudes who didn't pay their dues, we might have had questions about McCarthy. But nobody questioned his credentials.
Nope.
Nobody questioned whether or not his resume warranted him having a job. There's no reason to bring up racial discrepancies when it comes to Mike McCarthy. He's a Super Bowl champion, went to the playoffs 9 times in 13 years. He's been a head coach on this level before. But Cliff Kingsbury can sit up there. You didn't bring Urban Meyer or Nick Saban. I'm talking basic fairness. You talk about Cliff Kingsbury. I don't have anything against that man either. But you under 500 on the college level, you get an NFL head coaching job. Yeah. You talk about I ain't going to bring up LaFleur because they ain't fair. At least he was a coordinator in the National Football League. But now there's a wide receivers coach.
Let me try this from another. Let me try this from another angle. And Bart, I know you haven't. Let me just try this from another angle. Talking to the white owners and the powers that be. Because this happened with black quarterbacks too. Yeah. It's not about you don't have to go racist in the other direction. Black players are better than it's not about that. It's about excluding a segment of the population from a fair chance at a job. That puts your team at a competitive disadvantage. Like they tried to hoodwink black quarterbacks about don't be a quarterback. It's not good to run and throw, and that goes for white quarterbacks who could run and throw too, right? Like Aaron Rodgers, whoever, right? Andrew Luck. It's good to be able to do multiple things. It's good to include the entire population in a job search. And here's the word of warning. Once upon a time, the Yankees, one of the last teams to integrate, but they were the greatest dynasty of all time. And they used to say, we just take the best players. How are you going to tell us anything? We're winning the World Series every year. But you know what happened when they lagged behind the times? Other teams had access to talent pools that the Yankees didn't. So the St. Louis Cardinals, the Brooklyn Dodgers, then the St. Louis Cardinals took over, and the Yankees stunk for 15 years. You want to stink for 15 years? Keep excluding a group from basic fairness. It's the same thing with women in the workplace. You want to eliminate half the population from job opportunities? You're only hurting your own business. So, Stephen A., if basic fairness appeals don't work, how about your own business? Yeah. Do you want to run your business as well as you can, or do you want to put yourself at a competitive disadvantage?
There are brilliant minds. I'll leave it to you, Bob. Yeah. But there are minds far more brilliant than mine that I'm very closely connected to that have the power to make a difference. So what I'm going to do is work on getting a bunch of those minds together for us to address specifically the Rooney Rule, how it's being circumvented, and how we can eradicate that nonsense that's taking place with that. There has to be a basic issue of fairness. And for people out there that don't want to address this issue, go to hell. I don't give a damn whether you want to address it or not. It is wrong. It is so flagrantly wrong what is happening to black coaches in the National Football League. It's damn near getting as bad as college football is. With black coaches.
I mean,
go ahead.
Basically what they're saying is that you're good enough to be a coach, you're good enough to be a player, but you're not good enough to be the CEO of our company, our Fortune 500 company, and they got to be careful about the message that they're sending. I mean, I've seen for years, Anthony Lynn being the token black guy that comes in to hurry up and get the Rooney Rule out of the way. Marvin Lewis as well. Now Eric the Enemy is the next one. He's been qualified. He's paid his dues. You know, we hear Kevin O'Connell. I played with Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell went up the coaching ranks fast. Jim Leonard right now, you know, the defensive coordinator for Wisconsin. He's going to be one of the
Leslie Frazier, good job, defensive coordinator in Buffalo, former head coach in Minnesota.
Yeah, not good enough. So what are you really saying? That, you know, the same conversation that we used to have about the black quarterback, that they don't trust us to be able to manage, to be able to be in a position to lead men. You know, how can we not lead? We can connect with these players. We see in baseball all the time, everybody wants to talk about Beltran and how his ability to connect with the Hispanic players. Well, who can connect with a black man and know his plight, know what he's dealing with coming in from these urban areas and having to deal with family issues better than a black
by
coach?
the way, if a black man don't get it done, fire is behind.
Right,
and get another one. It's not like you got to hold on to that one. Just give them opportunities like you do everybody else.
Let me just tell you what I think is the underlying, and I don't know if this is a conscious thought or not, but at the ownership level, what I think has happened. Do you remember when Pac-Man Jones got into that trouble at NBA All-Star Weekend, right? That was considered an NBA problem, not an NFL problem. And I was thinking, why is that? A football player did that. It's because the NBA was perceived as a black league, and the NFL wasn't perceived as the same kind of league. And then the question becomes why? Who are the two most visible figures on a football team and the two leaders of men, the CEOs, as you say? Right. It's the two. Where does the camera go on the sideline? The head coach and the quarterback. So black men they have leadership, whatever else, and kept from quarterbacking. But now competitively on the field, of course, there are many great black quarterbacks. So that's not happening anymore. Right. So how do you stop yourself from being perceived as a black league if you feel that's at a marketplace disadvantage? You keep the coaches white.
Well, let me throw something in your direction, Max Kellerman, because you might have missed something. You and Molly might have missed this, being the Giants fans that y'all are. There was a superstar wide receiver there named Odell Beckham Jr.
Culture.
All right? Culture. Mm-hmm. Because that swag that he was bringing, we getting upset because he got a tantrum on the sideline like it's a crime, okay? That's what we tripping over, right? But why is that relevant? Because wasn't it Pat Shurmur? We didn't just rave about Saquon Barkley because we know what a study was. They loved his personality, his temperament, and what have you, how he presented himself. And I'm not saying that it doesn't matter, because presentation does matter.
Absolutely.
And as an organization, you have the right to want the level of presentation that you so choose. But it does not omit or eradicate what your intent was with highlighting the difference between Odell Beckham Jr. and Saquon. Because in my world, Odell can ball, he gonna show up to work. Saquon can ball, he gonna show up to work. The combination of the two is going to win games, and that is that. To the Giants, it was culture. What the hell does that mean? It is time we start asking that question of
what
NFL
was the Shurmur culture?
What the hell do you mean
What's
by
the Gettleman
that?
culture?
And let me clarify this, because we all have these conversations in the confines of our home or when we amongst friends. Stephen A., Bart, Max, Molly, myself, we ain't asking you to give nobody anything just because they black. We as black men take that as an insult when you think we're asking because we just needy and unqualified. Every guy we name that's an African-American head coach has put time in, has proven their mettle, and done a phenomenal job in their spots. The second thing is, you can feel how you want to feel about what we're talking about, but the reality is, it's there. It's in your face. And these particular situations and moments bring this conversation out because it is relevant. We talking about in sports. The thing we respect about sports is it's an instant answer to your question. Did you win or did you lose? Are you good enough or are you not? And that's why this sports arena has led the way in a lot of those other conversations. So for all the people that's going to say, well, how in the hell does Joe Judge getting hired turn into this type of conversation? Because this
not Mike McCarthy getting hired.
Not
Stephen
Mike
A. did
McCarthy,
not say anything about Mike McCarthy.
And it's not about Joe Judge not being good enough.
That's right.
Or even possibly qualified.
It's about the resume.
Period.
There's other people
Joe
with a different
Judge
complexion that have lengthier resumes, have played their dues, and aren't getting fair consideration.
your point,
Joe Judge is never black. If you're like, who's Joe Judge? And you Google him, oh, this guy jumped up, you be sure he's never going to be black.
Right.
100%.
Right.
And so don't ask the question of, well, you want somebody to give you something, or it's a sensitivity level. No, we are all bored of results based on
Who's the best
sports.
quarterback in the NFL
These
right
guys
now?
are overqualified.
Who's the best quarterback in the NFL right now?
Patrick Mahomes.
Who's the
Action
second best
Jackson.
quarterback in the
Action-
NFL?
Russell
Who's the
Wilson.
third best?
Action-
Okay, so I would say again to the owners, if the appeal to basic fairness doesn't work, are you stupid? Like, do you want what makes you think that coaching would be any different?
Yeah, right.
How do you know that if in 10 or 15 years, if things change, you might say, who's the best coach in the NFL? Second best coach. You are eliminating an enormous group from a talent pool, from a league that's 75% African American. So largely, those are the candidates with playing experience.
And we are highlighting and illuminating, and I'm grateful for this conversation, a far bigger issue than the basic sports. But as far as context for this hiring, what I'm hearing, a tweet here from Ed Werder, the Giants requested permission from the Cowboys to interview Jason Garrett as offensive coordinator under new head coach Joe Judge, because Garrett's 10 years of head coaching experience would be an important asset to an inexperienced head coach. And they also think Garrett could develop Daniel Jones.
That makes sense. I mean,
No problem.
that happens
Sound.
with every hire. Whenever you have a first-time head coach, you want to surround him with somebody with experience. You had Wade Phillips before, going out there to the Rams.
Yep.
And that's what it's for. That's standard operating procedure. But what we're saying is, why didn't Jim Caldwell get an opportunity? Why didn't Chris Richard, who's a young,
Eric
talented
Bieniemy.
coach, Eric Bieniemy, David Shaw, Byron Leftwich?
And what about-
Byron Leftwich has been a